Good morning. So I really just have a few quick questions. The first question came from one of my fellow editors at Automoblog, and they want to know what properties of a quality brand motor oil distinguishes it from a bargain price, a value-oriented, and proprietary formulas.
So that's a really good question, Mandy. I mean, at Pennzoil, what we're trying to do all the time is to develop products that have superior performance so that customers can get the best value for the money when they buy their motor oil. So with Pennzoil, we've been working hard to develop recently a new formulation for Pennzoil Ultra, and some of the properties that has which distinguishes it from a normal motor oil are we measure by the performance of the product. So we measure the performance in terms of the way the product keeps the engine clean, and in particular it keeps the key parts of the engine that are important clean. So Pennzoil Ultra, our new formulation, keeps pistons 65% cleaner than the industry standard, which is quite impressive by any standard. But in addition, we've done some testing of the new Pennzoil Ultra against our competitor products, and we're able to say that no oil, not even Mobil 1, keeps an engine closer to factory clean than Pennzoil Ultra. And in particular, when we look at pistons, Pennzoil Ultra keeps pistons 25% cleaner than Mobil 1. So that's the sort of, when your readers and listeners are looking for the sort of properties of an oil, they should be looking at the performance that the oil brings and how that compares to other products.
And one of the things that we look at when we have Pennzoil Ultra is we also actually not just keep clean, we actually clean up some of the sludge that lesser oils have left behind. So it's the entire family that actually can do more than most of the other oils can too, and that's what separates us from some of the other brands out there.
Well, building on that, can you briefly explain to me what your active cleansing agents are?
Yes, so active cleansing agents are the technology we incorporate into our Pennzoil line of products from Pennzoil Platinum, Pennzoil High Mileage, our Pennzoil Conventional, our Pennzoil Gold. And these are molecules which sort of gently clean dirt off surfaces in the engine, or collect dirt in the engine as it's formed, and they suspend these dirt molecules in the oil to stop the dirt from forming deposits, which can create all sorts of performance problems in the engine. So they're active. We like to call them dispersants and detergents, but they're molecules which sort of clean the engine as the engine is running.
Well, to aid in those active cleansing agents, have you partnered with filter makers to take and help increase the micron filtration of the material that they use inside their filters, or are you relying just on the oil to be the performer?
Well, that's a really good question. Now, we rely on the oil as just as it is to provide the performance, because the oils at Pennzoil are designed to work in engines from all automakers, all types. So we have to cope with a variety of filters, both latest technology filters, but also the filters you might find in a 10 or 20-year-old car. So it's important that Pennzoil technology, as we demonstrate with Pennzoil Ultra, that works in all vehicles, not just a small minority.
As auto manufacturers, they sell newer cars and they see these advancements. They're starting to contradict the long-standing 3,000-mile, 3-month oil change interval. And what advancements have been made to your conventional, not the synthetic motor oils, to take and accommodate that, or do you stay by the 3,000, 3-month moniker?
Now that is a very good question again, Andy. I mean, Pennzoil Conventional is designed to meet the latest industry standards of ILSAC GF5 and API, the American Petroleum Institute, and as such it's suitable for use in all modern vehicles. We would always, though, recommend that the user of an oil follows the vehicle manufacturer's recommendations for an oil change interval. So it's important to read the owner's manual and work out what that right oil change interval is on a case-by-case basis. And obviously some people lose their owner's manuals over time, so your customers your readers and listeners can look up pennzoil.com and type in their the make and model of their vehicle, and check the oil change interval for themselves as well.
Yep. And I think you hit on the key point is over the last 20 years or so, engines have changed completely. So turbocharging, smaller engines require, the displacement is much different than before to crank out that horsepower. And so the ability on conventional for Pennzoil yellow bottle to stick with those. One of the things that we do is if you go back to GF2 and be all the way up to GF5 now, oils have gotten a lot better. And that's been a combination of working with the OEMs to understand what their needs are, to understand what the government needs are in terms of some of the CAFE standard to make sure. But as these engines got smaller, our horsepower didn't decrease, which means that oil has to work a lot harder. And even on the Pennzoil yellow bottle, that's critical for us to make sure that we can do that. But that's what we always say in today's world, make sure that you follow the OEM's recommendation, whether it's severe driving or normal driving, and follow that process.
Has the present course in hybrid technology presented a challenge to you and your creation or advancement of your motor oils? For example, vehicles that run primarily on electric or battery power until it runs out, but the engine has been idling during this operation and doesn't actually kick in to operate the vehicle until after that hybrid power source has been drained. Are you finding that to be an obstacle, an opportunity? Does it tend to change the intervals that we were just discussing?
That's a really good question, and I think what you're highlighting there is the way that engine manufacturers are developing and changing the powertrain, the drivetrain continually at the moment to meet the emerging fuel efficiency standards. So we're working with all major OEMs to make sure that our lubricants, our oils, keep up in quality and requirements for vehicles such as hybrid vehicles, but also other technologies that are used to try and produce more power from this sort of same size of engine. So I can safely say at the moment the current Pennzoil portfolio products are all suitable for use in hybrid vehicles where recommended by the OEM, and we're working, as I say, with OEMs to try to understand what these emerging technologies, what impact this will have on the lubricant of the future. So we're trying to stay one step ahead of these developments so that when the next requirements hit the field, Pennzoil Ultra and the Pennzoil portfolio are ready for the consumer.
Excellent. So going back to when we were talking about the older vehicles, how are long life or high mileage formulas different from the more conventional and even the synthetic grade oils? And if it includes a particular polymer to take an aid in the reduction of friction in the older engines, is that also found in the non-long life formulas?
The high mileage, again, man, that's a very good question. The high mileage vehicles, the oils we design for high mileage vehicles are designed basically to help an older engine run just as efficiently and try to extend the life of that engine. So to do that, it's really about giving the engine the protection that it needs after already a long life. The real point to me with a high mileage engine is the owner really doesn't know the history of the vehicle, so it's important to make sure that the high mileage oil that you put in that car gives maximum protection, not just against wear but also against deposit control, and keeps the engine as clean as can be. That's why at Pennzoil we're very proud of the active cleansing and the hyper cleansing technology that we have, because that helps gently just to clean the deposits out of a high mileage engine so that it can work at the best condition possible.
I think the other thing for high mileage oils is clearly that's a product that's made for specific types of needs. So when you think about seal swells and some of the things that tends to have problems with older vehicles, there are elements within the high mileage, there are ingredients in there that are specifically made for that type of problem solution. So that's one of the things that stands high mileage oils out unique from perhaps the synthetics or the conventional.
Excellent. When I worked in the heavy-duty truck industry, about the time the new EPA regulations came about when they had to start reducing their NOx emissions. And I know as fuel efficiency and emission standards become tighter in cars, in the heavy-duty industry, the oil was a specific element for reducing the emissions that came out of the trucks. Is the same thing happening in the automotive and light-duty trucks that happened in the heavy-duty sector?
Yes, man, that's a good question again. Yes, it is. I mean, the oil is a key component which for the automakers in helping them to reduce fuel economy and improve fuel efficiency, and also to maintain compatibility with the emissions control systems in modern vehicles. What we're doing at Pennzoil is to work closely with OEMs on their next generation of vehicles and engines, so that our oil is playing a sort of significant contribution to reducing fuel consumed and reducing emissions.
And I think your point is exactly right, that what's happening on the heavy-duty side is you're seeing it in the passenger car side. So there is a lot of concern about emissions, and that's one of the reasons that Pennzoil really pushes towards the clean story, because a clean engine is a more efficient engine. So when you have less piston deposits, there's less blow-by, there's fewer emissions as part of that too. So it's a very efficient engine, it's a very clean engine, and that's why we have Pennzoil, and we formulate the active cleansing agents or the hyper cleansing agents of Pennzoil Ultra to make sure we take care of that and become a very efficient engine.
Wonderful. And one last question. If you're a typical busy person, as I tend to be, and I frequently overextend my oil change intervals, as I'm sure many of my readers do, at what point does your oil, or does the oil become so inefficient that it begins to gel up? Because when I used to sell engines, we could take valve covers off, and the oil was no longer oil, it was more of a jelly substance.
That's a very good question, Mandy. I would always recommend not to let your oil get into that situation. So however good the quality of the oil, you should always change your oil as close as possible to the manufacturer's recommended intervals. Even an oil of the quality of Pennzoil Ultra with the strong hyper cleansing technology, we'd still always recommend that you change your oil in accordance with car manufacturers' recommendations.